Hello guys, as always, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to answer a comment that I got on a recent video of mine, and I'm just gonna start right away and dive right in. So the person commented, "You are so beautiful though. I think that definitely helps when you are in the process of gaining weight. It's like not all is lost." Not to come across as vain, but yeah, I just thought that came straight from my ED. And I replied to the comment with a very long response, but I'm gonna read it out anyways. So I said, "Thank you very much, but don't forget that beauty is very subjective. I don't feel pretty most of the times. In full transparency, when I film, I do my makeup, I make sure to sit in a good lighting, etc. I had the exact same feelings, especially during recovery. I told myself that if I was taller or prettier, recovery would be easier. As you pointed out already, this is clearly an ED thought. I always say, things scream when they are dying, so your ED is looking for reasons why you can't recover, why it's different for you than it is for others. Your warm-hearted comments show me the beautiful human being you are. Please don't listen to your ED." And I really mean that. Like, everything I just said comes from the deep of my heart. So the person replied afterwards and said, "Oh, it's horrible to hear how screwed up our ED brains are. I'm so sorry you have ever felt that way. But yeah, so relatable how you mentioned the height also. I'm also short. I've been trying to recover for 2 years. 2 years ago, I finally attempted full all-in recovery again, and I managed to quasi recover for about a year. I did gain a lot of weight, but still restricted. Till the comments became unbearable and I started relapsing in total. So here I am again. Normal weight and struggling to keep up. That is the thing I struggle with the most. The fear of people view me when I'm in a large body. Fear of comments being made. We can't keep people from being cruel. The only way is to take it. Not attached to it. Or let it impact you. It's hard. My face and chin pisses me off the most. I think it's genetically just fatter. I have no idea. I have never been in real recovery or given in long enough." So then I replied and basically told her that I would love to make a video about it if she's comfortable. She agreed, so here we are. So first things first, as I mentioned before, I'm not saying that to, get nice comments or compliments, but I honestly don't like the way I look most of the times. As I mentioned in a video where I was talking about makeup a couple of weeks ago, it took me quite some time to even show my face without makeup to my boyfriend, who, by the way, always makes me feel good about myself. Like, he has a way to make me feel good about myself, which I'm very grateful for. But also now, like before I filmed this video, I made sure to put on some makeup. I made my eyebrows, I put on mascara, I put on something on my lips, some concealer. I make sure I sit in a good lighting. So these are all things to look at. I don't love when people take pictures of me most of the time. I still struggle with how my body looks. I don't struggle with eating anymore, and I also don't struggle with movement anymore because I don't attach those things to each other. It doesn't mean that I love the way I look. I just want to live a life where I do what I love fully, where I eat what I love fully, and I know that I'm getting there. I know that I will start to accept myself more and more, and it's also like a big goal for me because eventually I want to have a family and I want to be a role model. I don't want to be the mother that talks shitty about her body. I don't want to be the mother that does diets and teaches their kids to hate themselves. But I just want to point that out because, again, these are all things to look at. When I started gaining weight, I hated the way my face looked. I hated the way how puffy I was. I hated my chin. I hated that I didn't have the sharp jawline. All these kind of things. And as I mentioned in the comment as well, I always told myself, well, if I wouldn't be like just 5'5", but like taller, I would look better. Taller people have it easier, all that kind of stuff. But in the end, it doesn't matter because, as I said before, beauty is subjective. And ED recovery is hard for everyone. It doesn't matter if you're super tall or if you're super short. It doesn't matter what your face looks like. These are thoughts that come straight from your ED. These are arguments your ED brings up in order to keep you from recovering. And I get it. I know how hard it is because, again, I told myself these things. And I still find myself on some days comparing myself to others and don't liking myself when somebody takes a picture from my site. I have so many angles I don't like about myself. I just want to be super honest here with you. But that doesn't mean that recovery is impossible for you. Just because I don't think I'm the most beautiful person in the world, and just because I look in the mirror most of the times and don't love what I see, doesn't mean that I have to restrict. These things don't have to coexist. So that being said, I also want to dive into something she mentioned, which is the quasi recovery and the relapses after comments, which are very familiar to me. So when I started my very first recovery attempt in 2015, actually before I went to the first clinic, I went all in and I gained like 10 kilograms within a couple of weeks. I remember I would still live with my mom at that time, and she went on vacation for 2 weeks, and she came back and she hugged me and she was super relieved, and she was like, oh my God, you look so much better. And I know that it came out of from a place of love. And looking back now, I'm like, there's nothing wrong with it. Like this should have, motivated me. But I was already in a place where I struggled with a weight gain, and people would tell me it was too fast and all in is not the right approach, which I don't agree with. But I was way too attached to, other people's opinion. And the reason I wanted to recover back then was also like the relationship that ended shortly before. So I kind of wanted to show my ex-boyfriend that I was able to recover. So it didn't come from the inside. I didn't want to recover. I just wanted people to stop talking, and I wanted to show my boyfriend or my ex-boyfriend that I was able to recover, but it wasn't me. So I quickly relapsed because I was very attached to other people's comments. I couldn't handle it when somebody said, oh, you look so much better, or you look so much healthier. This is a quote that is very familiar for all the people in the recovery community, because most of the people can't stand those comments. And no matter how often I communicate it, please don't comment on my body, please don't comment on my eating habits. There are so many more things we can talk about. People would still do it. And this was probably one of the hardest things to do, because you're already struggling, you're already fighting every day to keep eating, to not working out, to keep going. And then those comments come from the outside. So as long as you can tell yourself, oh, maybe it's body dysmorphia, maybe I see my body differently, it's a different story. But when people start to comment on your body, it is way worse. And the first thing I always tell people is to set boundaries. I know how hard it is, especially with family, because oftentimes people get or feel very attacked and get very defensive and being like, well, I have to be able to say something, when honestly, no. As I said before, there are so many things to talk about. You don't have to talk about a person's appearance, especially if they didn't ask you for a comment. So setting a boundary and asking people to not comment on their body or their weight, especially with your history, is more than fine. And if anybody tells you it's not, it's definitely their problem, because if it's so hard for them to avoid talking about looks, there's something going on, if you know what I mean. Second of all, I mentioned it before, I'm gonna say it again. I know it sounds very simple and at the same time super hard, but you have to keep going. And this is the harder thing, because it feels so much easier to consider going back, to be just like, okay, or from my point of view, it was actually like, I'm gonna show them what their comments do to me. So if somebody would comment on me and it would hurt me, instead of saying something and setting a boundary, I was always like, well, now I'm going to lose weight, so I'm going to show them how hurtful their comments are. But this is a deeply disordered habit. This is a deeply disordered reaction. You have to use your words. This is like one of the most important things in eating disorder recovery. Learn to step up for yourself. Learn to use your words. Learn to communicate your emotions. And yes, there will be people who don't understand that. There will be people who react, in a bad way. But this is also part of the experience. You mentioned being in Quasi Recovery. So the reason why Quasi Recovery is the worst is because you clearly still starve yourself. You clearly undereat. You clearly don't give yourself access to all the foods. You probably also like over-exercise, if that is something you struggle with. But Quasi Recovery is a point where you don't allow yourself to eat regardless, to eat everything you want to. So there is still a big part of you that probably wants to and that is craving other things, but you don't allow it to yourself. So it's this daily struggle and this daily restriction. At the same time, you're eating more than you did before. Maybe your body changed already. People start to make comments. People actually start to assume that you're better when you're clearly not, because you're still battling every day. So people don't even take you as serious anymore because they think you're feeling better already when you're clearly not. Your eating disorder is also not happy anymore because you don't restrict as much as you did before. So you're in this middle part where your eating disorder is clearly unhappy and is fighting for you to go back every day, and where your other part is also not happy because you're still restricting and you feel very uncomfortable already. But it comes, when I started to go all in, yes, I felt super uncomfortable. I didn't like my body at all, but I could at least tell myself, you know what, at least I can eat whatever I want. It was like a reward. I was able to eat everything I wanted, and yes, I hated my body, but to be able to eat was so rewarding that I was like, okay, I'm gonna keep going. When you're in Quasi Recovery, you can't do any of those things. Like, you can't eat whatever you want to because you're still restricting, but you also don't make your eating disorder happy, which we don't want to do anyway. But I hope you understand why quasi recovery is so dangerous. Also, if we're looking at the Minnesota starvation study, if we're looking at all the other studies I covered earlier, I covered in my book, and I'm also going to make videos about, quasi recovery is the worst for your brain, because quasi recovery actually triggers you way more than going all in and staying all in for a long period of time. So in the Minnesota starvation study, in the rehabilitation phase, they also had they had 3 groups. They had a group of men, you know how they were all starved for I think 12 weeks. And then they had 3 groups in the rehabilitation phase. The first group was given just a small amount of calories more per day. So they could eat a little bit more, but it was still very restricted. The second group was given a little bit more than the first group, and the third group didn't have any restrictions at all. So now you can guess which group recovered the fastest. Yes, it was the third group that could give into their extreme hunger, that could eat whatever they wanted, and it was huge amount of foods. Without being judgmental, but we're talking 10 to 20,000 calories a day, which might sound a lot, but it's actually pretty normal in eating disorder recovery. So these men, of course, gained weight more, way faster, but they could also eat everything they wanted, and they were the first group to recover. So this shows us that, all those little steps in going just 100 calories higher after such a long time being in quasi recovery is not the right way. Going all in, of course, if you check it with an MD before, because you want to make sure that your body can handle it. We also talked about refeed syndrome before, so please make sure that it's safe. Please always talk to a doctor before. I'm not a doctor, I'm just talking about my personal experiences. So always make sure that you're coming from a first place, physically. But if you can, going all in without restrictions and don't do the quasi recovery thing is the best way you can do if you really want to recover. And if you don't see progress after 1 year, go on, because you know from experience that a life with an eating disorder is not what you want. You know it, which is why you consider recovery. It's not because you're too weak to starve yourself. It's not, anything that your eating disorder tells yourself. It's actually because deep down you know this is not the life that you want to live. Deep down you know that the only way to truly live a happy life is recovery. And again, I know that during recovery, no matter how long it takes, it oftentimes feels like you will never get there, but you will. So these are my thoughts on quasi recovery, also on feeling ugly or, not liking yourself. Again, please remember what you see on the internet, what you see in my videos, what you see on other people's Instagrams or whatever, is just a picture. It's a picture. People use filters, people use makeups. As I said before, I always put on makeup and make sure the light is good because I'm still very insecure about my looks and I want to make sure that I kind of like what I'm seeing. But this is not how I wake up in the morning. Clearly not. So yeah, just to mention that, I hope it's helpful. Please keep on commenting. I really love to hear your people's opinion, to hear your people's experience. It is very helpful for me as well. As I mentioned before, I'm approaching to become a recovery coach. I'm currently working on my website, so give me a couple more months and then we will start with the first intake. So if you're interested in that, I will definitely let you know. And I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you so much for everyone who subscribed to my channel, for everyone who's watching my videos, for everyone who's taking the time to comment. It truly means a lot. I read every single comment. Sometimes it takes me a while to answer, but I really love you guys. I appreciate you, and as always, I will see you in the next one.